I'm going to show you how you can beat the driving test nerves by training your mind to have a more positive outlook for your driving test. And we're starting right now with the word uncertainty. Very often, uncertainty is the root cause of feelings of nervousness or anxiety, because if we don't know what to expect, that's going to bring on feelings of stress and nerves. So with that in mind, in relation to the driving test in Ireland, I want to introduce you to the 4 T's. These 4 T's will help you to prepare and plan for the driving test. The first T is telephone. So the tester will call you on the phone when he or she is ready to see you. During the current period of restrictions, learner drivers who are doing the driving test must wait in the car, and the tester will call them when it's time to begin the test. So have your phone with you, make sure it's on, and expect a phone call from the tester. The second T is theory. Once the tester has checked your learner permit and established who you are, he is going to ask you some theory and road signs. So make sure you have a good knowledge of your rules of the road so you can get off to a good start on the test. The next T is technical. There will be some technical checks as part of your driving test at the beginning, and within that word technical there's 3 aspects. The first one is the engine checks. So once the tester has finished with the theory and the signs, he's going to come out of the test centre with you and go to the car that you're going to be using for your driving test. The tester will then ask you to open the bonnet and ask you to point out some parts of the engine, such as the oil, the brake fluid and the water, things like that. It's just a minor part of the test, so don't worry about it too much. The second aspect of the technical checks is the indicators and brake lights. So the tester is going to want to know that your indicators, both front and back, and your brake lights are working effectively. So with you sitting in the driver's seat and the tester standing outside, he's going to do a check to make sure that they're all working. The third aspect of the technical part of the driving test is the technical checks inside the car. So once the tester is satisfied that the indicators and brake lights are working and that your car is taxed, insured and NCT'd, he's going to sit in the passenger seat beside you and he's probably going to ask you a couple of checks in the car, such as finding out if you know how your wipers work and how the lights work, and he may ask you about the demisters and the hazard lights and things like that. So they would be the main technical checks on your driving test that you should be prepared for. The 4th T then is town or city driving, because you're going to be doing the vast majority of your driving in an urban area. So be prepared for lots of roundabouts, mini roundabouts, junctions, crossroads, traffic lights, pedestrian crossings, speed bumps, as well as manoeuvres such as the reverse around the corner, the turnabout, the hill start, and the tester will also ask you some hand signals. Once the test is finished then, he will come back to the test centre with you, bring you inside to the office and give you the result. So hopefully these 4 T's will help you to prepare and plan for your driving test and put you in a more positive state of mind. You're probably going to have doubts about your driving ability if you allow negative thoughts to enter your head in the period leading up to your driving test. So if you notice that a negative thought is coming into your head that causes you to doubt your confidence or doubt your ability, here's what you need to do. You need to acknowledge that negative thought, smile at it, and then calmly replace it with a more positive thought. In driving terms, you might be feeling nervous about some aspect of driving, such as the turnabout, the hill start, or the theory, whatever it may be. So what you need to do is acknowledge the fact that you're feeling nervous or anxious about that aspect of driving, smile at it, but replace it with something more positive, such as a really good lesson that you did recently with your driving instructor, a really good reverse you've done, or maybe just an acknowledgement of how far you've come in driving terms from when you started out at the very beginning. Awareness is the key word here. You need to be aware that the negative thoughts are trying to get inside your head and whirl around and cause you to doubt your ability. So if you're aware of those negative thoughts knocking on the door, then you should be equally aware of the tips I gave you on how to deal with these negative thoughts and get rid of them. In my experience, the 10 or 15 minutes before the tester actually called you is the worst part in terms of having driving test nerves, because you know you're getting close to the driving test then, and that wait, whether you're waiting in the car or whether you're waiting in the waiting room, can be a stressful experience. But here's how you can deal with that, and it's very simple. You just have to live in the present moment. Most of the reason that we get nervous and get anxious is because we're worrying about the past, or we're stressing about something that hasn't happened yet. So if you live in the present moment, you're going to help yourself to deal with that more effectively. That means if you're sitting in the car waiting for the tester to call you, or you're sitting in the waiting room waiting for the tester to come out and invite you into the office, here's what you need to do. You need to feel the weight of your body. That means acknowledge how your feet are touching the ground and supporting the rest of your body. Note the feeling of the weight of your body against the seat and how the backrest supports you. Focus on your breathing, slow but distinct breaths. And whenever you notice your mind wandering, just return to the breathing. Bring your mind back to the breathing, because our minds will try and run away with all these crazy thoughts, but it's your job to be mindful and to bring your thoughts back to your breathing, or to think about a positive experience you've had with your driving recently, such as a good lesson or a good reverse that you've done. For example, I had a driving test myself recently. A couple of weeks ago, I had my own driving instructor's check test. That's a test that us driving instructors do every 2 or 3 years to ensure the standards are kept up, and it's basically part of a quality control mechanism with the RSA. Now, I wasn't nervous about this thing because I was putting into practice these tips that I'm sharing with you. But being honest with you, I wasn't looking forward to it, and I can live without these check tests, to be honest. But I know they have to be done, and so I do them. But as I was waiting for the examiner to call me, I had a student with me. So what happens is I do a lesson with a student, a learner driver that I'm giving lessons to, and then the examiner sits in the back, observes the lesson, and then gives the result at the end. So anyway, I was waiting for the call from the examiner to come into the test centre in Wexford. But before he called me, I was in a deep conversation with the learner driver beside me. Now, we weren't even talking about anything to do with driving, but because we were in a deep conversation, I didn't have time to be nervous or to be anxious waiting on that call because my mind was distracted. Then the call came anyway. I answered it, and here's what I did. I focused on every single thing that the examiner was saying to me. He was just saying simple things like, hello, how are you? If you come to the door, I'll let you in. I'll see you in about a minute. Just things like that. I went to the door anyway. He introduced himself, very professional, very polite as always. He asked me, did I need to use the toilet? I said, yes, that'd be great. And so as I was walking to the toilet, I was conscious of my steps hitting the ground. I was conscious of my hand on the door, pushing the door in. I was conscious of myself doing my number one as I went to the toilet. And then I washed my hands thoroughly afterwards. And I was very conscious of the soap hitting my hand and my skin on one hand meeting the other and then drying my hand and all that. And then the tester brought me to the office then, and he sat down and just said what we'll be doing, and I told him about the student that I'd have and all that kind of stuff. But I was so focused on what he was saying. For example, when he said, I'd like you to take this mask here because we ask everybody to use the masks that we provide. So I listened distinctly and very, very carefully to every single word that he said. And because I was doing that, I was living in the present. I was living in the moment, and therefore I wasn't nervous, I wasn't anxious at all, and then that helped me to perform better in my own test as it proceeded. A lot of the tips I'm sharing with you in this video come from a great book that I was reading recently, and it's called The Art of Power by Thich Nhat Hanh. And it's a wonderful read, and I'm going to leave a link in the description if you'd like to purchase this book. I'd highly recommend it. It really is a great read. But that's where the majority of the inspiration comes from for this video. And I could have really done with these tips back in 2014 because I believe I suffered an anxiety attack back then. I haven't really told very many people about this, and I certainly haven't mentioned it on my YouTube channel, but let me just go into detail about this a little bit. In that year, 2014, I was incredibly busy as a driving instructor. I wasn't doing much videos, I wasn't doing any other work. I was completely focused on the driving lessons, and basically I was doing too much. I was doing 7 or 8 lessons a day, 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, and it was kind of getting to be too much for me. So one summer evening in 2014, I think it was July, I was doing a lesson with a young lad, and we pulled into the side of the road. And then very suddenly I started feeling these nervous pains in my stomach and in my lower chest. And I really thought this was weird because I'd never experienced anything like that before. The closest I'd come would be feeling nervous before a sporting event or something like that. So it was this kind of nervous feeling, kind of like butterflies. Now, the mistake I did was I started to focus on this feeling of nervousness in my stomach. I started putting all my thoughts on it. I was becoming a bit distracted from the young lad beside me. And because I was focusing on it so much, it actually got worse and worse and worse. Now, eventually I snapped out of it. I think I opened the window and just took an instinctive deep breath, and I got through the lesson and everything was okay. I'm not sure if the learner noticed it, but I suspect he did. So the lesson is, if you feel something bad happening to you, like a negative thought or a feeling of butterflies, as in anxiety that I just explained, if you focus on it more and more, it's going to get worse and worse. It's going to grow and grow. So the trick is to not let your mind focus on the bad thing. Go back to what I said earlier in the video. Acknowledge the feeling, smile at it, and then calmly but decisively replace it with something else, a more positive thought. If you have any tips or advice on how to combat feelings of anxiety or nervousness about a driving test, then let us know in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. I'll be back very soon with another video. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.